Hello, I'm Alan Hinsey with Maine Biz Sunday, and this is our Afterthoughts segment where we keep our guests around for some extended conversation about the topic that we had earlier in the program. Today we have Rob Snyder with the Island Institute and Glenn Libby with the Midcoast Fishermen's Co-op here today, talking about the Port Clyde Fresh Catch and a number of other programs that they've got going on down there. So we want to continue our discussion. So thanks for sticking around.
Sure.
I wanted to get into a little more detail about the business model, I guess. I want to make sure I know how you guys are making money and who's making the money and how is it organized. I'm familiar with co-ops in general. I don't know, just tell me about the business structure, the business organization structure for the co-op. And then how is that different, or is it different than what Port Clyde Fresh Catch is? Tell me how those work.
No, it is a co-op.
Okay.
It's organized like any co-op. Any profit that's generated is dispersed to the members at the end of the year. Okay. The shares are determined by the amount of contribution, which means landings. So, is whatever we do, two species mainly, groundfish and shrimp, and your share of co-op revenue, if there is any to divide up, is based on how much of that you catch.
Are your members exclusively participating with the co-op, or are they selling on their own separately as well, or?
We don't have the capacity at this point to take all of the catch, so a big percentage of it still goes to either the fish exchange or processors in Portland.
Okay.
One of the things we're actually pretty excited about this, in the last 18 months, we've actually gone from moving 3% of the volume landed in Port Clyde up to 10% through these new market channels. So that's real progress. It's still a long way to go. But you can see where a tremendous volume still does need to be moved through traditional outlets. We see that as an opportunity, though, in terms of bringing more, kind of increasing the amount that boats are making, and ultimately, seeing marketing and branding as the tool for preserving the fleet.
Right. And once again, tell me how many are in the co-op, how many fishermen?
There are 12 members in the co-op right now.
All right. What about other staff that's associated with it? Who does your back office stuff? Who does the marketing? Who does all that stuff?
Well, the marketing is being handled right now by Laura Kramer, who's working through the Island Institute.
Okay.
We all have pretty much, if you sign on to this business, you end up doing a lot of different things. Yeah. We've got people taking calls, taking the orders. We've got an accountant that does the books. And we've got staff at the plant that work on the processing. We've got people that are more or less managers and other who are laborers and things like that. But there's a tremendous opportunity for growth there.
Yep.
We've created, I think, 8 new jobs already, and there should be substantially more this winter.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. What are the number of jobs that are associated with this effort?
Oh, there's 8 or 10 jobs right now that are going on that are outside of fishing.
Okay.
And
that's in processing and in administration as well? Or?
Yes, both.
Okay.
Yeah, and there'll be more as we go, because we're talking about hand-picking shrimp, and that's very labor-intensive. But we've got a lot of people that are interested in doing it because work is scarce right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen on your website and some of the marketing material too about the church bell in Port Clyde and the symbolism of that. They used to ring the bell to call the women primarily to the cannery plant, and you're starting doing that again. So, how do you see this growing? Do you see in terms of number of possible employees that could be working there? That was a major part of what kept Port Clyde and that region alive.
Yeah, I'd like to see it grow back to that level. It's going to take time. The market is still very competitive. So it's hard to break into these markets and return more money to the boats, which is the ultimate goal. Okay. In order to keep the fleet going, we have to create some sort of market structure that allows them to operate. The market structure that we have right now, coupled with a lack of fish, it's a negative number.
Okay.
So without this, I don't see much hope for the future. This has to work.
But it's also going to be more narrow. I mean, the industry's not going to go back to where it was because the stocks aren't there.
That's right.
So you're looking at a smaller niche product with a higher market value, right?
That's the whole purpose of the model in our mind. I mean, I think we're at this kind of point, though, in building this model that's a tricky place to navigate, and that is kind of as you see the opportunity for moving beyond 10% of the catch to 25, 30, 50% of the catch. To what extent do you mechanize some of the functions
Right.
versus the kinds of employment that are created in those jobs, and kind of where, is it about keeping the boats going? Is it about expanding the number of jobs in the community? It's about all of those things. And so how do you balance that? And that's really, I think, one of the kind of needles we're trying to thread right now, is really trying to figure that out, because we have a goal of ensuring and increasing the wealth and well-being in the community.
I guess one of the questions, in terms of the business model, if Island Institute and their resources weren't a part of this, could you do this?
I think so.
Okay. Because sooner or later, they're going to stop being a part
Yep.
of this, and that's right?
We actually started the CSF on our own.
Okay.
And we had some growth on our own before the Institute ever got involved. Now, would we be where we are today? Who knows?
Right.
But
it's giving you that boost and the stability and the resources.
it certainly helped.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Yep, and it certainly opened some doors that may not have been opened.
Yeah.
But
since the beginning, we've had a plan that this relationship would last around 3 years.
Okay.
And in other relationships where we're seeking similar kind of venture partnerships, we stage them so that they have a scaled end date. Because our goal is that these are sustainable on their own. It's not that we're permanently subsidizing the coastal economy.
Right, exactly. Okay. Speaking of business, then, you're always looking ahead. So real quickly, we're going to, last question, what's next? What's next for the co-op? What's next for Port Clyde Fresh Catch? And then I'm going to ask you the same thing for Island Institute relative to this program.
Sure.
Well, it's kind of a two-track strategy, if you will. It's the where do we go from here? How do we process? Do we go to mechanization? Do we open a retail store? Things like that. And at the same time, there's a micro, where do we go from here? And that's going to be, what do we do this upcoming shrimp season?
Right.
How do we grow capacity there?
Okay, so we're looking at those options.
Yep.
Good. What's the Island Institute's involvement going forward, and what else is coming up?
Well, I think one of the things that we're seeing, what Port Clyde has done, what we're working on down in Casco Bay with Calendar Island Lobster, and what I've learned about what's going on in Sitka or in Alaska, Port Orford, Oregon, Southern California. There are similar community-based co-ops around the country who are all working towards similar goals. And I think there's a lot of efficiency that could be found if we could find a kind of a co-op of co-ops business model, perhaps a marketing co-op or some other structure that would allow us to share some resources around access to markets, in particular sales force, brand development, common standards that these groups already agree to in substance. That
So are you having some of those talks with them now?
Yeah, we've started those talks, and we're looking to the future and saying, 3 to 5 years from now, perhaps that's this next step for community-based fisheries.
Good. Okay, great. Going to have to wrap it there. I did want to say one final thing. If this doesn't work out for you, the whole fishing thing doesn't work out, you should open your own marketing agency. I see your face on more news programs, on more television shows. So no, you've done an excellent job of kind of becoming, not literally the face of it, but also moving this forward, because it's clear that it's about tying the customer to where the fish came from and who brought it in. I mean, it makes so much sense. So anyhow.
I always like to have a backup plan.
Good. Thanks a lot. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you all.